Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dad Lit Pod.
Welcome to the Dad Lit Podcast, the literary podcast for people who are crazy pissed about the Cracker Barrel rebranding. I'm your host, Dan Roberts. Tonight I'm joined by Brendan Deneen. Brendan is the author of the award-winning novel, The Ninth Circle, as well as The Chrysalis, a 2018 horror novel that was optioned by Paramount before publication. He's also the author of the best-selling four-volume Night Night Groot picture book series, which we're going to talk about for Marvel. The original middle grade graphic novel Green Arrow, Stranded for DC Comics, and the best-selling novels Morbius Blood Ties and Guardians of the Galaxy Annihilation from Marvel Titan and Alien Uncivil War from 20th Century Studios. Ooh, we'll have to talk about that too. His new novel is the post-apocalyptic romance thriller Tracer from Blackstone Publishing, which folks can get from Blackstone's website using all caps Dad Lit Pod, no spaces. That'll get you 25% off the print edition. Well, Brendan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel. Great to be here, and very excited to talk to you about your show, my books, and everything in between.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brendan is also a dad.
I am, yes.
Dude,
I've got two daughters. One is about to be a sophomore in college, so I'm in that world. And my other daughter is about to start high school. So I am a girl dad. I am in the thick of it, the teenage years.
how much do
But
they hate? Do they hate you more or your wife more?
I think they find us both pretty cringe, as the kids say. Um, I think my jokes were much funnier 10 years ago or something, because it's mostly just eye rolls at this point.
Yes, I have a 4-year-old who was yelling at me yesterday because she was doing a K-pop Demon Hunters dance rendition, and I tried to join, and she was not having it. She was not
Yeah,
impressed with my moves.
that reminds me.
Uh,
I learned the floss about 3 years too late, and I was so happy with myself, and they were absolutely mortified.
nice.
Yeah, yes,
Did you
yes,
ever get to read the Baby Groot books to them? Were they young
yeah,
enough then?
yes. I went to their schools and read it. It was pretty cool. I For my younger daughter, I actually printed up a blank comic book page and had them do their own sort of root story. And so my younger daughter, who's got a dark sensibility like me, had her page, her picture book page ended with Groot like getting on fire somehow. It was really
So it went well.
amazingly sick. It was pretty awesome.
It went quite well then.
It was
Uh,
amazing. And she's got, I write horror, and she's definitely got that. She's got that vibe.
yeah, did you get to meet Groot himself, the D's, at any point?
No, no, I wish that would be awesome. Although there is on YouTube a video of I'm just blanking on her name, of course, because we're on a podcast, but the woman who plays Gamora, of course, she's a
Oh,
huge
Zoe Saldana.
yeah. So there's a
Yes.
video on YouTube of her reading Night Night Groot as like a bedtime story to the camera.
Oh, that's fun.
It was amazing. It was like,
Yeah.
she mispronounced my last name, but I'll allow it.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
You did, which is
Yes.
amazing. So
Yes.
a lot of people say Deanon, which is just, that's fine. If Zoe Saldana says Deanon, then that's fine. That's fine.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Why don't we, because we're on that. One second. Why don't we talk about what it's like to write IP? So IP
Yeah.
in this case being intellectual property. How'd you get into that?
Well, I was, I was in high school in the 1980s. I'm 53. So it was before email. So I was writing letters to Marvel and DC, pitching them ideas for
Hmm.
existing, usually not even B-list characters. I went after C-list characters. So I figured I'd have a shot. So I got relatively close a couple times with them as a teenager. But of course, it never happened. And then finally in 2006, I had my first comic book published, which was my own character. But my editor of that book was talking to King Features, and he emailed me or called me, said, "Hey, do you want to pitch Flash Gordon? They're hearing Flash Gordon pitches." So I was like, "Yeah, I saw Flash Gordon the movie in the theater in 1980 when I was 8 years old." And so that was a dream and pitch. So I pitched. I came up with a whole pitch. Turned out it was like me versus a much bigger company. They really liked my pitch. So that was the start of me writing IP, which was Flash Gordon. And I did that for years. I wrote a lot of issues of Flash Gordon, and that was an amazing experience. Um, and then after that, I went after other things like Atlas Comics, which is sort of an interesting footnote in the comic book industry that I won't bore you or any of your listeners with. But it's a really interesting um, company that existed for about a year and a half in the 70s. I went after those rights. I got those. Um, and I wrote one of those books. I went after the Island of Misfit Toys. I got that. So I was able to do an original Island of Misfit Toys book. I just sort of started going after stuff that I liked.
Hmm.
And then Night Night Groot was a weird one. I was with my wife and daughters, and they were shopping, and perhaps like some other dads out there, I'm not a shopping guy. And so it was an Abercrombie and Fitch or one of those stores, and they had books there. And I was like, well, I don't want to go look at clothing. So I'm going to go look at these books, these whatever pop culture books. And one of them was Goodnight iPad. And it was a spoof of Goodnight Moon.
Hmm.
And it was like, Goodnight iPad, Goodnight cell phone. It's like saying goodnight to all your devices. And I work in publishing by day, and so I looked up the sales numbers for that book, Goodnight iPad, and it was staggering. It was like 70,000 copies or something crazy. I was like, oh, and then like that night or 2 nights later or something, I was reading my younger daughter Goodnight Moon, and my brain scrambled Moon into Doom, and I came up with Goodnight Doom, and I pictured a little baby Doctor Doom being read to by his witch mother, and so I wrote it. I wrote this Goodnight Doom, just wrote it, and I reached out to Disney Publishing, and I was like, I sent them the manuscript, which was short, and they're like, "Would you please have coffee with us?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll have coffee with you, Disney." And they're like, they didn't own the Fantastic Four yet. So they were like, we love this. We can't do Doctor Doom. Let's find another ooh character that rhymes with
Hmm.
moon. And we settled on Groot, and I wrote it for them. They hired me to write it. And then the book came out a month or two before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Baby Groot, and the book went crazy. It sold so many copies. And they're like, "Do you want to write three more?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So that just became this thing I was doing. And like some people were like, "Oh my God, you invented Groot." And someone's like, "They're bootlegging your character on these t-shirts." I'm like, I did not create Groot, but thank you for thinking that. Um, and then at some point in this, the Chrysalis, my second novel, came out, and I met with an editor and gave him a copy. And like literally 20 minutes later, he read the first chapter on the subway, and emailed me. The title said Morbius, which is one of Spider-Man's villains, who I've always
Hmm.
loved. And he's like, "Do you want to write a Morbius novel for Titan?" And I was like, "I would love to write a Morbius novel." And they let me pitch my own story, and that led to Guardians of the Galaxy with Titan, which led to Alien with Titan. And I'm skipping over a lot of interesting stuff, but it's been really fun to write these characters that I love and grew up loving.
So I haven't read your Alien book
Yeah.
yet. Uh, w- were you like when you heard they were going to make new Alien show, you were like, I wrote an Alien book?
It is pretty cool. I saw
Were you
it's
tempted? Were you a little interested if they were gonna pick up your Alien book for Alien Earth?
It was a little like I knew it wasn't that because my book is not set on Earth.
Oh, okay.
But what was cool was going to see Romulus, and my book had just come out, and so I got a picture of me holding my Alien novel at the screening of Romulus, standing in front of an Alien Romulus poster, wearing a Wayland Yutani shirt. It's just like, and actually the way that came about is really funny and weird. So basically, during the height of COVID, I um, just did some like fan fiction stuff because I had free time. And so I've always been bothered by Alien 3 while recognizing that Fincher is obviously a genius. But that movie is much maligned, and I didn't like it because of the opening, and they kill off all these characters you love.
Yes, that tends to be what people hate about it,
It's
but
hard. It's hard to get past,
uh I actually like the movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I rewatched. I watched the director's cut recently, and liked it actually a lot more. But anyway, so during COVID, the height of it, I decided to write my own Alien 3, a synopsis. So I just wrote what I wanted. That why I wanted to see Ripley and Hicks and Newt and Bishop together as like a family, like in a
Mhm.
weird family and like crash landing on this planet and bringing aliens with them. And so I wrote it and I sent it to my editor at Titan, who had done Morbius, and I said, "Would you guys ever do like an alternate Alien 3?" And he wrote back right away. He's like, "Absolutely not. Like that's ridiculous." I was like, I get it. That is ridiculous. I know this. And so a
That's
year and a
that's
half,
a lot nicer than Disney.
yeah, a year and a half went by, and I'd forgotten about it, and I got an email from the same guy who wrote to me about Morbius, and the subject line was Alien, and he said, "I finally actually read the the synopsis you wrote. This is really cool." And he said, "Would you consider changing the characters and making it an original, same plot,
Yeah.
but make it, instead of Ripley, it's someone else?" And so I was like, yeah, of course I will do that. So they told me when to set it. It's set, I think it's one of the late, if not the latest, one of the latest in the canon. It's after Resurrection.
Mhm.
So it's deep into way before, I'm sorry, way after Alien Earth. Um, and that was cool too, because I rewatched Alien Resurrection for the first time since seeing it in the theater. And I didn't realize Joss Whedon had written it, first off.
Mhm.
But there's some interesting. It's not a perfect movie, but some really interesting stuff going on in that movie.
I actually another movie that I like, and I didn't fully appreciate how much I liked it until South Park sort of skewered it.
I don't think I saw that.
With
Oh my
the oh
God.
yeah, South Park recreates the clone scene. Uh where she goes, "Kill me," and
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's just a giant ball of like flesh.
Oh, is that with
And
Cartman? Is that with
yeah,
Cartman?
it's with Cartman.
Oh, maybe I
Yeah.
have seen that. Yeah,
Yes. And it's very funny. I
yeah,
forget what they were trying to what they cloned that resulted in that. But they recreated it and I was like, you know what? That scene was really effective.
yeah,
And that movie had Winona Ryder in it
yeah.
and Sigourney Weaver,
And Ron Perlman. I mean,
and
and it's
Ron
It's
Perlman.
Joss Whedon, and the Ron. This is interesting. The Ron Perlman crew is very much an archetype or a prototype for what became Firefly.
Yeah.
They're this ragtag bunch. You can see where he was, like where he kind of got that from
Yes.
himself, which is interesting.
And wasn't there a guy in a wheelchair who had like a
Yeah,
shotgun in his leg?
yeah, yeah, something like
Yes.
that. Yeah, it was
Yes.
crazy. There's a lot of weird stuff in that movie. But it was better than I remembered it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that, I mean, having it, I've been an Alien fan since I can remember as a kid, seeing that movie way too early.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I
so
watched it
like,
when I was like 6.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so like having a novel that's canon, that's original, that it's like a dream, it's a complete dream come true for me.
Yeah. What are your feelings about um and if you can't say it because of course you worked with Disney and you still write, but one of the things that I as a dadlet uh I don't know what you would call me, an emerging dadlet expert
Okay.
is the Star Wars expanded universe that existed in books.
Mm,
the
The Timothy
marriage.
Zahn.
Yeah. All those zillions of really, really like good books
Yeah.
that came out and were just written and they're so fun and they're so good. And I still like Dark Saber. Dark Saber is a great book. The there's one where like where the witches, so the witches that we see in Acolyte are basically mentioned in one of those books. They go to like a planet and it's with Han and Leia on the planet. Luke has to go and save them. So all that canon was sort of like, kaputted.
Yeah.
When you write something like that, do you write it with the vision that it's going to be canon? Or do you write it with like, this is going to be a story, it's alien, it's fun, and I just want to write about Alien?
Yeah. I mean, I think mean, I do a lot of research, so
Yeah.
it's very much written to be canon. Like my book is written to be canon because I
Yeah.
followed the rule. I was given rules, kind of timelines, and I was
Oh.
very careful to be true. And there were certain things I could not say. Um, and so yeah, I mean, look, if it gets whited out by, I don't care.
Oh,
Like,
well, I don't think it
yeah.
will.
But even
I'm
if it
just
does,
saying
even if
like,
I'd written a Star Wars novel and it got decanonized, I wouldn't care because I wrote a freaking Star Wars novel.
I
Like
know,
it does,
right?
yeah.
Like,
And look, I don't. I think some people like that canon better than the current canon. So like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really sweat. I mean, I've been reading comic books my whole life. I know
yeah,
all about reboots and people dying and coming back to. It's like nothing. It doesn't really matter. Like
yeah,
you write it, you read it, you love it, you hate it. Like just it's I think as long as you're enjoying yourself, I don't take it that part too seriously.
yeah. But that is really cool. One of my dreams is to write a Warhammer 40K book for the Black Library.
Nice,
And I want to write it about orcs from the
nice.
perspective of orcs. And I want to write it from the perspective of like one of the cannon fodder orcs, the little ones
Right, right.
that's always at the back, and the other orcs are always gonna like eat that orc. And yeah, no, I've outlined it all out. However, I can't figure out how does one submit to the Black Library. So that's why I'm interested in your IP experience. It just
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a good answer. Like I mean, I work in publishing,
hmm
which helps because I know how to get to people. But
hmm
like I recently reached out to Star Wars people. I said, "Oh, I wrote
hmm
an alien novel." They're like, "Okay, we'll be in touch." So maybe they will, and probably they won't. I reached out to Star Trek because I'm a big Trekkie, and same thing. They're like, "Oh, so cool, congrats!" And maybe they'll reach out, and probably they won't. And I pitched a Blade Runner prequel that I thought was really cool,
hmm
and they read it and they said, "No, thank you." And so like, I wrote an awesome Tron prequel idea which could have come out along with Ares. Like the timing was perfect. Disney turned that down. I didn't really get that. Seemed like such a no-brainer. So like I go after stuff all the time, and
hmm
maybe 50-50 or even less do I actually get it. So
Still interesting.
oh, it's great. And so yeah, I mean, you got to go through agents, you go through the editors, but they they put up wall. They don't want you to get to them. So it's like, how do you get like over the wall, through the wall, under the wall?
hmm
It's and look, I'm an editor myself. It's like it's a lot of people want to do this stuff, and so and then that means it's hard to do. And I'm
mm
really, really lucky.
mm.
Plus I bust my ass, but so do a lot of people.
Yeah. I find that that if you're willing to work, right? And you're willing to listen to people, that it goes a long way.
Yes,
Uh
being a not a jerk, it helps. And also just like putting yourself out there, like that alien thing. they didn't come to me. I pitched them Alien 3 and they were like, you're insane. Um,
We're not gonna
we're
redo
not gonna
Alien
do that.
3.
And so I was like,
Yes.
okay, yeah, that was a ridiculous idea. But then they read it and I was like, and they're like, would you redo it? And some people might be like, no, that's my vision. Or I'm like, yeah, of course that's another thing I would advise. It's like, you gotta be flexible. And, I've worked with a lot of authors who are just like very stringent about the vision. It's like, but until you get big enough where you can do whatever you want, like working with people, flexible, being flexible, it's huge.
Yeah, I think there's an element of building faith.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it like I always use Tom Clancy as an example because I was talking with a friend of mine who he and I workshop our books together. We're gonna do a book club episode about Rainbow Six, which I believe is one of
nice.
the ultimate dad lit books.
Yeah,
And we were talking about how long it is. It's unbelievably long. It's like 900 pages,
wow,
but it's 900 pages of excellence.
right. Doesn't feel like it.
It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it. And I think that you just have to build up to that,
Hmm.
and to build up and to sort of establish. Because if you look back, like all of Stephen King's early stuff was sub 80. And it only, later on does it start to push, 140. And now, of course, it's all north of 140. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and hitting deadlines, it's a big, like, I've written two of the books I wrote in 2 months each, Morbius and Guardians of the Galaxy. I wrote them in 2 months, like 80,000 words. And I think once
Yeah.
people realize that you can hit a deadline, you're fast for IP, like that's like a lot, because a lot of times they're doing it to time with a movie, or they're
Yeah.
like, oh, can you do this in 2 months? And so, like, you shouldn't say yes, but you want the job, and you're like, of course I can.
Of
And
course
then
I
you just
can.
figure out how to get it done. It's just
Yeah.
like a stream of consciousness thing. You can't be growing roses. You gotta just get it done.
Yeah. What's your process like if you get a project and you're looking at 80,000 words?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's math, and which I'm not good at, but it's just here's the number of words, and here's the number of days.
Yeah.
Divide the words by the days, and then on my whiteboard each day I wrote, it's 1,500 words a day or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
1,500, 3,000, 4, 5, and then each day at the end of the day I cross it out.
Yeah.
And if I didn't hit that number, the next day I've got twice as much. So I don't really miss days because I don't want it on the whiteboard to start like becoming double, triple behind.
Hmm.
So it's very motivating. The whiteboard and the word count for me is very, because it's just staring at me.
Hmm.
And if I don't cross it out, I'm gonna be regret. I'm really mad at myself the next day.
Hmm.
So that for me, that's how. And outlining, it's like when you have a really detailed, or as detailed as you can do it, then you're just like getting to the next sentence in the outline, like,
Yeah.
and then it's just like almost like coloring in a way.
Yeah.
The, the
Filling in
the
the
lines are still there. I mean, the lines are already there.
Yeah, I do usually do a very rough outline.
Yeah.
I know where my characters are going. I usually know the ending, and then I know what the sort of I tend to naturally write in a 7 act structure,
Oh wow.
uh with um with about 33 chapters, averaging somewhere between, like 2,500 to 3,000 words a chapter. It just sort of falls that way. Um,
Interesting.
and and to that extent, I tend to end up with like somewhere between 77 and 85,000 words at the end.
That's about right.
Yeah, and it's always it's always about establishing rhythm to begin with
Hmm.
and understanding the tone, um, because I think tone is so important
Yeah.
in any work. Knowing the tone of what the book is going to sound like and how it's going to flow. And once I've got that figured out, uh, I can go back and I'll go back a chapter to the chapter I wrote the day before. run through that so that the next batch remains part of that pacing. And I
Yeah, it's a
find
good
that's
idea.
really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. Definitely. Yeah, I think writing once you get into it, trying to write every day is good, so you don't lose the tone, the
Hmm.
rhythm, the momentum. Taking a week off while you're writing something, it can be killer for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It tends to cut at it. But then again, when I get into it, I become very obsessive about it.
that's interesting.
Yes, when I'm like really on the down slope, once I get to that halfway part, I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, now I want to see where this goes.
uh,
Let's take this. I've the ride starts.
that's
The
interesting.
action has risen and the ride
I don't
starts
think I ever
now.
get there. I think every day I dread it. I dread having to sit down and write. It's kind of like going to the gym. I dread it. And then once I'm doing it, whether gym or writing, and then I'm like in it, and I'm like, oh, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then when
Hmm.
I'm done for the day, I'm like, oh my God, that was awesome. I'm so glad I did that. So, but I do. It's like I dread as I'm pushing myself to write. I'm like, oh, I do not want to do this today. It's like it's a weird thing.
Yep. So let's talk about Tracer.
Yeah, yeah. Tracer is my first original novel, non-IP, since 2018, The Chrysalis, which was my last original one, which is Paramount let the rights go, but that's now in development as a movie with a big horror director and a big horror producer. So Tracer,
Ooh.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I just read the most recent draft of the script this week, actually. The chances that anything ever actually gets made is slim, but
Yep.
it's got some really exciting pieces coming together for it. So I've been writing so much IP in the last 7 years, and I came up with the idea for Tracer 10 years ago, because I was a very dad scenario. I was cleaning the kitchen as we do. Um, and like
Cleaning.
I recognize that like when we put out recycling, probably 10% of that plastic actually goes to be recycled and the rest just goes in the garbage, or maybe 100% just goes in the
Mhm.
garbage. Regardless of that knowledge, I'm still like obsessive about plastic and recycling. And so I remember I was cleaning something plastic and looking for the triangle. I'm like, is this recyclable? Like an archaeologist was like, is the triangle there? And this one didn't have it, and so I put it in the garbage, and I was like, oh, that's just gonna sit in a landfill for like 8 billion years. And then I was like, oh, like it's gotta be a lot of plastic in landfills out there. And then I was like, oh, it's like plastic's made out of oil, and so I like Googled, can you turn plastic back into oil? And so
Mhm.
I went down this rabbit hole, and they are working on a prototype machine, or they were 10 years ago. Maybe it's done by now, that can turn plastic back into oil. And it's like plastic could become a resource. And that to me was so interesting. And
Mhm.
and then I was thinking, if oil ran out, plastic, and you could turn plastic back into oil, plastic would suddenly become incredibly valuable, and landfills would be the most valuable. It'd be like gold mines, right? And then so I threw in a plague. This is before COVID, long before it. I threw in a plague that takes out like 90% of humanity. Oils run dry, and everybody's after plastic. So it's sort of a Mad Max vibe. You read it. It's sort of a Mad
Yeah.
Max vibe. I wanted to have a love story. I wanted to have a protagonist who was just kind of just a badass mercenary who never wanted to get involved emotionally, which I think is kind of a classic or tropey character. But I really liked writing her. I liked that she was female, um, that she was not the damsel, that her love interest was the guy in distress, that she had this weird relationship with her sort of adoptive mother. Um, yeah, so it came out of basically me doing cleaning the kitchen is how it
Mhm.
started. Like a true dad. This is the perfect
Yes.
podcast because it really was a very dad thing to be like trying to recycle.
So what is the attraction of writing a post-apocalyptic novel? One of my favorite novels
Yeah.
of all time is David Brin's The Postman, which is a
Oh yeah, right.
post-apocalyptic novel,
Sure.
but
Yeah,
it's a
made into a
post
very bad movie, right?
ah I disagree. Also a
Oh,
great movie.
okay. I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing. I just know people hated it, but I'll have to check it out.
It is a sentimental mess, is how
Right.
I would describe it. Like all Kevin Costner
And
movies.
like all dads or
Yeah, like all
some
dads.
messes.
Yes. Um the but of course the Postman is about the world ending and someone being like, man, it was really great before it ended.
Oh, interesting. I have a copy of it here somewhere, actually, that book,
Yeah.
which I've not read, which is embarrassing, but I'll admit it.
Oh no,
Um,
no, by all means. It's very it I don't remember. He didn't win the Hugo for that, but it's one of my favorite books.
I've heard it's great.
Yes,
I've heard it's great.
and I recently found out that when they designed the game Fallout, they used his sort of like weird mini societies
Hmm,
that the main character travels through as sort of the foundation for the ideas behind the weird towns that you show up to in
that's
Fallout.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really intended to write something post-apocalyptic. It's a crowded
Hmm.
field. It was really more a result of how do I get how do I get to into a story where plastic is the new gold?
Yeah.
Because I really liked that idea. And then when I started playing with it, so oil has to not it has to run out basically.
Hmm.
And so you've got these landfill cities, and you can't have too many people on Earth because then you can't have the journey across the desert if there's too many people. So it really was not intentional that I want to write a post-apocalyptic novel. It was more I came up with this really weird plastic uh story, and I was like, how do I get there? And I was like, the only thing I could do is post-apocalyptic in my head. So
Hmm.
it's sort of just I backed into it in a way.
Yeah. And you wrote it and pitched it to Blackstone, or did you write it before and then send it over to Blackstone?
So this is where it gets incestuous. So I'm an editor at Blackstone.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so my day job is I'm an editor at Blackstone, and I run the film and TV division there as well. So
Okay.
I sell Blackstone properties to Hollywood. So we haven't even talked about this. So I've been doing books to film for 25 years. I worked for Harvey Weinstein for 4 years, which is a whole other podcast, perhaps. Um, I
Well, you
worked
buried the lead.
yeah, I worked for Scott Rudin. I worked at Dimension Films. I was at Macmillan as an editor for almost a decade. I created Macmillan Entertainment. So I did books to film at St. Martin's Press and Tor and
Hmm.
Macmillan, and sold 100 books to Hollywood over 8.5 years. Um, and so I was actually very in some ways reticent about my own company publishing my book, but
Hmm.
one of my coworkers, we were just talking about writing, and he's like, "What are you working on?" I'm like, "I've been working on this book for 10 years called Tracer, and I only have 50 pages." This was true. And and he's like, "Let me read it." I'm like, "Ah, dude, it's a mess. I don't know." And so I said, "It's my coworker," and I never intended for anyone at my company to read it. I'm very strict about separation between my writing and my day job. I
Hmm.
was taught when I worked at the William Morris Agency 25 years ago. I was a young assistant, and they were like, "Do not tell anyone you want to be a writer, because they will fire you." And so
Hmm.
I didn't tell anybody for a very long time I was a writer, or I wanted to be one. So Dan, my editor, or my coworker, he read the first 50 pages, and he's like, "I love this. This is." I was like, "Dude, you don't have to say that." He's like, "No, no, dude, I really, really love it." He's like, "I'm going to take it to the CEO, who's my boss." And I'm like, please don't bring it up in editorial meeting. Like, don't bring it up if I'm on a Zoom. It's embarrassing to me. He's like, okay, I won't, because normally you got to bring a book up to the editorial meeting and everybody talks about it. And I'm like, I just don't want to be. It's so embarrassing to me. And so he came back, whatever, months later. He's like, he loves it too, and we want to publish it. I was like, oh, really? I don't feel really weird. I feel really weird about this. And he's like, "Don't. We really like it. We think it's good." So, I basically said I don't want to be on any Zooms in the company when my book is. It's so it makes me feel so awkward. So we agreed
Yeah.
that we basically would treat me as two different people. I'm the executive at Blackstone. I run the movie division. I'm an editor. And then as an author, you never talk about my book when I'm on the on the call. So it's been a little weird, and like Publishers Marketplace refused um, to announce the book because I work there, which is like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So it feels a little weird. It feels like maybe if it was my first book, maybe I'd feel weird about it. But since it's my 16th published book, I
Yeah.
sort of feel like I put in my dues.
Hmm.
It's not a favor that they're doing for me.
Hmm.
I could have chopped this elsewhere. I could have written it, but they wanted to take it off the table before it was written. Which I've done for a lot of my books. The Chrysalis Core took off, table. I really all my books except my very first one, I got hired to write before I wrote it, which is an absolute blessing. You know.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Well,
so
that's
it's a little incestuous, like I said.
yeah, but well, at the same time, you do know what they want. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I was gonna say Blackstone used to specialize in audiobooks, correct?
Yeah, so they started as an audio only um, publisher in 1987. The
Yeah,
founders started literally in their garage making tapes, books on tape.
yeah.
And they just chugged along and got bigger and bigger. And then, in 2010-ish, everyone thought digital books were going to be the big thing. And they got big, but then they plateaued. And audio, as I'm sure you know, audio became
Hmm.
what everyone thought digital was going to be because everyone got smart devices. And then you can be vacuuming or driving or running, and you can listen to a book. And so audio, as you know, has become a huge business.
Yeah.
So huge that in 2015, under the leadership of Josh Stanton, who's my boss, the CEO of Blackstone, they decided to start doing print, digital, and audio and become a full publisher. And now it's 10 years later. They brought on more editors. They brought on a foreign rights executive who's amazing. They brought on me to do film and TV. I've got 40 or 50 Blackstone projects in development with Hollywood.
Oh,
Um,
great.
yeah. So um,
Including, I believe, Shogun, right?
yeah, that's got nothing to do with me. That,
Oh,
that,
okay.
that was, I don't know the whole story. That's not one of my books, but I think whoever had the rights, whichever, I think Big Five publishing company had those publishing rights. I guess they let it lapse or something, and
Hmm.
Blackstone just snapped it up. So I've got a movie at Netflix based on a short story. I've got a TV show at Legendary TV with a book series, military series. I've got a show with Amblin. I've got a movie at Amazon Studios. I've got a TV show at Lionsgate TV. Like that's really what I do for a living is I can sell books to Hollywood and short stories. I've been doing it for so long. I know a ton of people in Hollywood.
Mm.
So no one's gonna make Tracer into a movie. I think it's probably too expensive. And Furiosa unfortunately didn't perform. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, underperformed,
yeah,
unfortunately.
and I just think that unfortunately, I didn't write it to be a movie though. I honestly like the
Hmm.
Chrysalis. That was written like with kind of like this is a movie. Tracer, it's like I just wrote it because I really liked the image of this living in this garbage city and this woman who has just been trained to be this like killer, and she
Hmm.
falls in love and she's like, I don't even know what this means. Um and the twist, I won't give it away, but the twist of her real mission, and the heartbreak there and what she decides to do as a result. That to me, maybe someday it could be like it. Like my younger daughter showed me Arcane. I don't know if you're familiar with that animated
Hmm.
show. I think based on a game, and it felt like Tracer, like badass women and super violent, and I was like, well, maybe Tracer could be a cartoon, for adults. But it's not my intention with it. It wasn't, I don't, I just don't have any expectations that it will become anything more than a book, which is fine.
Yeah. How would you say, because when I think about what I'm writing, I always conceptualize it kind of cinematically.
Hmm.
Like I always think about it probably because my brain has been warped by watching movies and
Sure.
loving movies and being sort of obsessed with movies. Uh, but to that extent, I think about how would you write to a movie? To sort of if you were thinking about writing a book that has movie,
Yeah.
components or movie possibilities.
I mean, you got to look at what's selling, right? It's what does well now. And honestly, if someone just asked me and I said, "What genre can you write?" and if they said any genre, I would say go write a horror novel because horror is just it's such a perennial and it's doing so well. I mean, I saw Weapons, and low budget, and I mean, you got to come up with something new, and it's got to be. But like what's a romance? It's like romance is really hot even in Hollywood. If you can think of a good high concept, go write a romance novel. I would say don't write a post-apocalyptic novel. Um, don't write a space western. Don't write Star Trek. As much as I love those things, Hollywood is not going to take a chance. Like anything with a big budget, they're not going to take a chance on it unless it's a bestseller. And
Yeah.
so and also, honestly, you don't need to write a book. I've sold so many short stories in the last 5 years to Hollywood. Like, go just write a short story, and like, the hard part is getting someone to see it. But Hollywood is all about short stories right now, and I'm selling
Mm.
a ton of them to Hollywood.
Well, I mean the one of my favorite short stories that would subsequently become a movie is it's the most um one beautiful gift, which is what is used for Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh,
And it was really funny. I'm kind of obsessed with It's a Wonderful Life. I think it's one of America's first supernatural horror films. And I wrote a whole
yeah.
article about it. And so when Amazon did the abridged release, the reason they did the abridged release to It's a Wonderful Life is because if you take out the part where he goes back in time, you don't have to pay rights to anyone because
Oh,
the family still owns the rights to the short story. And the short story basically encompasses that last stretch where he goes to the alternate timeline.
oh my God! How can you cut
Yes.
that out?
Yeah. And I was like, what are they cutting out of It's a Wonderful Life? It's not that long of a movie.
That's crazy. No, and I love how like Back to the Future 2 sort of riffs on it, and
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's a great movie. I've seen it a million times, and
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think i- if you want to write for Hollywood, and I think people shouldn't write for Hollywood. I mean, like you should write a book or a story because you want to, but if you
Yeah.
are, it's a little cynical, but if you want to write something geared in that, if you're going to write something anyway, and you're like, I don't care which genre, it's just like what's working or what works almost always because like the
Hmm.
trends change by the time you write something and comes out, it's so long. But horror is just it's a pretty safe bet. It kind of never goes away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's- mostly you think about it like how much less money it costs
Yeah,
to do, this is why I think we're seeing so many domestic thrillers. And it's like, oh, well, domestic thriller, all you need are actors and a place.
yeah,
And then it plays out like a teleplay where everybody's doing their, sort of pieces within that place.
yeah. Then you yeah. There's something about a horror movie that you can get away with such a higher concept. Domestic thriller, I love domestic thrillers, but it's like, you have to come up with an idea that captures people's imaginations, right? So it's like
Hmm.
20 kids go missing from the same classroom, and it's only that classroom. Like,
Yeah.
whether or not you love the movie, I was talking to somebody recently who did not like it, and I was surprised.
Yep.
It just that trailer was so effective, and the concept is so clean that if you can
Hmm.
come up with a story or a novel, horror or romance or anything that's not super high budget with a really great concept that captures the imagination, it can do really well
Yeah.
in both publishing and adaptation. It's not easy to do, but it's doable and anyone can do it. And that's what's sort of fun about the hunt for that concept.
Yeah.
I think Tracer in a lot of ways is too complicated for Holly. It's like it takes like, but what's it about? I don't have the 20-second pitch. Like the
Hmm.
Chrysalis, that's easy. It's a very simple thing. But the Tracer is like complicated. And so even when people ask me what it's about, I'm like, well, how much time do you have? It's not an
So
easy elevator pitch.
it's got a long log line.
I mean, it's just there's a lot going on. It's like, okay, the
Yeah.
oil's run out and people are gone and plastic and I mean, I think people hear it and they're like, that is such a cool idea. But it's not for Hollywood. It's not, Hollywood's got a very narrow like view of what they want. And if
Hmm.
if it takes too long to say the log line, they're already kind of like moving on in their head to something else. So you got to be really good at boiling something down to like one sentence.
Yeah. How long did you work at Dimension?
4 years. So interestingly, I worked for Bob and Harvey Weinstein for the last 2 years of Miramax and Dimension that they owned,
Hmm.
and then the first 2 years of the Weinstein Company and Dimension. So I was really there for a weird period
Hmm.
when I could do a whole pot.
Were they still talking back then? Or had
I mean,
they,
yeah, they were. They
yeah,
launched the Weinstein Company together.
yeah.
And the
Then they,
Miramax is named after their parents. It's Miriam and Max Weinstein. So like
yeah.
when they lost that company name, like that was a personal. I mean, they sold it to Disney a long time earlier than that.
Hmm.
But I did hear them at times having blowout fights in the conference room.
Hmm.
So
Mercurial
I mean,
was,
I
yeah.
was one of the only execs who worked for both of them because I did books to film for both of them,
Hmm.
and they were very different in a lot of ways, like their temperaments. And also, I worked for Scott Rudin, another mega producer who also, got canceled for behavior, although not to the extent, obviously, as Harvey.
Yeah, it's Harvey. Yeah.
And he was a whole other temperament. And so working for 6 years in a row for Scott Rudin, Bob Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, it was intense, man. It was like
Hmm.
it was 6 years boot camp into publishing in Hollywood. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've often wondered because of how, like, what it takes to put a movie together,
Right.
the sort of idea that, like, me, a normal person, could do that is just not, I couldn't do it. I'll be honest with you. If I was placed as the director in charge of a $26 million to $40 million, I would go insane. I would go completely insane.
I mean, the directing and producing, like, could you be on set every day,
Yeah, I just go nuts.
overseeing it? Like, I don't want to do that either. I don't want to be on set.
Oh
Like, I don't want
yeah.
to be away again with a dad. I'm like, as a dad, I'm like, I don't want to be on set for 3 months and away from my family. Like,
Yes.
yeah, no way. So yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I've got my coworker at Rudin's, this guy Lars Knudsen, and he produced Midsommar and Hereditary, and
Hmm.
he's a dad, and he's got to go. He's a great guy. We were really close, and um, he's gone on to be a hugely successful producer of Ari Aster's movies. Um, and he's a dad, and he makes it work, and it's you have to really dedicate yourself to that craft. And I don't want to do it. So like I'm an executive
Yeah.
producer on a lot of the stuff that I am developing with these studios and streamers and stuff. But I want to be at home giving notes on screenplays. I don't want to be on
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been on set with any films?
Oh yeah, I've been on lots of sets. When I worked for Bob and Harvey, I was on the set of Starsky and Hutch and hung out with Ben Stiller, which was really fun. And there's a really kind of obscure movie called Outlander with Ron Perlman.
Hmm.
About it's like Beowulf, but it's a spaceship crashes on Earth and it's like Vikings versus a monster. Jim Caviezel and so I hung out with Ron Perlman a bunch in Toronto, and he was
Hmm.
the nicest guy. And so yeah, I've been on set. A Fanboys, which was written by the guy who wrote Ready Player One.
Hmm.
I was on that set for a while, so I met like Seth Rogen before he was mega. He was pretty famous, but he was not, mega famous. Dan Fogelman, I think is his name. He was in that too. So yeah, I mean it's fun to visit, and then you're like, okay, I don't need to be here anymore.
Yeah, I'm ready to go to my house.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, you got to be like up. It's like shooting out in the cold. It's just like, so
Yeah.
this is, I'm too old. This is work. This is hard. This is hard. I give a lot of credit to capital P producers and grips and the dolly grips and the all, like it's tough work, and I give those guys and those women and those men and all those people a lot of credit.
So now that you're working in the publishing to film industry, here's a question. When are we going to get a Rainbow Six movie?
I don't know. It's funny because two of the Blackstone authors, Andrews and Wilson, they write the Tom Clancy books now.
Yeah.
If you look up the most recent, not Tom Clancy Jr., but the regular, straight up Tom. I guess he's the president. I don't read a lot of Clancy, but
Yeah.
so I do have an in. I could probably find out. But that's a good
Who has
question.
the, you could find out who has the rights?
Well, it would be whoever um is making Jack Ryan, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's it's Amazon, right?
Yeah, so it would probably be Amazon. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Let's call him.
Yeah,
Let's
the
let's give him
day
a
has
call.
come. The
I mean, I could
day
ask.
has
I mean, I
come.
know. I've got a movie. I'm sorry. I have a TV show at Amazon. No, it's a movie. And I know people. I could ask. I mean, I could just ask them. I'll find out. I'll
Oh
ask
my
them
God.
for you.
I must know. I must
Yeah.
know when the Rainbow Six movie is coming.
Just
Uh
remind me, and I'll ask.
yes. Speaking of weapons, Zach Kreger, do you have any ins with him? I just wrote an article where I try and convince him not to make a prequel to
Yeah.
Weapons
Oh yeah, I saw that you did that. Yeah.
and to let Gladys roam free.
Yes.
If
So
you know,
Boulder Light, who produced those movies, they're looking. I'm talking to them about a short story.
oh
That's in,
really?
yeah, about not that I wrote, in an upcoming collection that I'm publishing. So I do have I have connection. I mean, I've been doing this so long that I can get almost. I'm not saying get to Zach. He's
Yeah.
certainly having a moment. But yeah, I can I
I'm
can I
sure
can
he's
ask.
I'm sure he's busy, but let him know that the Dad Lit Pod
Yeah.
wants him, doesn't want him to ruin Gladys. We love
Okay.
Gladys.
I will pass on. I'm
We
like,
were
I'm like 2 degrees of separation, so I will.
So that's fun. So are you out in California?
No, I've somehow made my entire career book to film out of New York. So
Okay.
I worked for William Morris Agency back when it was still WMA. I worked in the New York office. That led to Scott Rudin, who was based in New York, and that led to Bob and Harvey, who were based in New York.
Hmm.
And that led to Macmillan, after I was a literary agent for a while, and a book to film agent. And then I was only just an editor at Macmillan. Um, and then I basically bluffed my way into starting a movie division there.
Hmm.
I was not authorized to do it. Basically, I had held onto the rights to this book that I had bought. I found it in the slush pile. And so Macmillan kept the film rights because this author, didn't have an agent, and I was paying. And I said, "Look, I do film, and I would love to rep the rights." And she was like, "Yeah." So the producers of the Twilight movies, which were huge at the time, called me. They're like, "We're going to make an offer for the film rights, and we hear that you control those rights." So they made an offer, and I should have just passed it on to the rights department. But I was just like, "Oh, I want Macmillan attached as the production company," which I was not authorized to say. And it was Summit Entertainment, which eventually got bought by Lionsgate. And the lawyer was like, "Right, yeah, no problem. Yeah, Macmillan can. Here's the fee we'll pay you if it gets made, and you'll get a company credit." And I hung up, and I was like, "Oh my God, what did I just do?" So I went to my boss, and I was like, "Oh, I just did this thing." He's like, "You can't do that." Um, so then people found out at Macmillan, and they convened this big meeting in a conference room, and half the room was pissed off at me that I'd gotten Macmillan a producing credit on the movie with Summit Entertainment, the producers of Twilight. And the other half of the room was like so excited. And the head of Macmillan at the time was luckily on the right side of the room, and he was like, "No, I'm telling you, go, keep going." And then I started selling other stuff, and then he called me upstairs to his office, and he's like, "I keep hearing about all these deals you're making." He's like, "What would you like to do?" And I was just like, "Oh, I want my own division, and I want my own logo, and I want to get a promotion." And I was just like saying all these words, and he was basically like, "Okay, yeah, let's just do all that." So I got my own division, McMillan Entertainment, and I ran it for whatever 8 years and sold a ton of McMillan stuff, and it was really fun. It was just a cool, and then I just translated that over to Blackstone, which is a smaller, obviously, company than McMillan, but still a big indie.
Yeah.
300, 200, 300 employees, and um, family owned, and really nimble, really forward thinking. My boss Josh is willing to take risks and try stuff, and he was just
Yeah, I
like,
mean, James, I had a conversation with James Wade a
"Yep,
couple weeks ago, and
right,
James was like, "Yeah, I don't know what my genre is, and fortunately, I found Blackstone."
yeah, yeah, we love him." And I think I saw that you had Scott Bell on, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I was the editor of that book,
yeah.
and I edited, I worked really closely. I helped him retitle it from the original title. And I sold the TV rights of that to one of the production companies behind Severance.
Oh, fun.
So yeah, so that's an active development as a TV show. So like it's fun. It's fun as an editor to read stuff, and I'm looking at it as with two hats. I'm like, all right, this will do well in publishing, but also I can now go flip this to Hollywood. So I only really look at stuff that I can do both.
Yeah.
And then when agents are like, no, we're working with William Morris or ICM, I'm like, that's awesome, but I'm not your guy.
Hmm.
I work in two directions, and so it's a really cool job, and I kind of created it out of thin air, and I'm lucky, and it's sort of again that mix of like luck and also just busting your ass.
Yeah. That seems to be well, I mean, Thomas Sowell said that many times that
Yeah,
if you look at a person you think is lucky, odds are they just work really hard.
yeah. It's like being a dad.
Yeah,
Being a dad. You need a lot of luck, and you got to work your ass off, and hopefully you get it right.
yes. Well, you want to plug Tracer?
I mean, like, thank you so much. Like, this is awesome. I love that you do this. My number one job is being a dad, and that sounds cheesy, but really, like that's my job.
That's mine too.
Everything else is like it's great, but like that's the thing. So thank you. And yeah, so Tracer is like in some ways it feels like my most important book because it's my first original in so long, and the Alien
Mhm.
sells itself, and the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of sells itself, and like this is just me now. And so it feels important. It feels like risky in a scary way. So it comes out on September 2nd. It's they're publishing hardcover and softcover. So
Mhm.
there's the less expensive version, or like the really nice hardcover version. Audiobook. I met the audiobook narrator. She's amazing. I heard a bunch of auditions, which were all great, but she was just so perfect. My wife listened to them independently and picked the same person. So there's a great audio version. There's the digital version. So yeah, it's out on in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. Tracer, September 2nd. I really appreciate you even talking about it at all. So thank you.
No, absolutely. And the your very kind employer gave me a discount code, Dadlit Pod, all caps, for 25% off the physical copy of Tracer. And they were very kind about it. I was like, I'd like to see if anyone buys the Dadlit Pod books.
Yeah,
Would you guys be willing to do that? And then they were like, yeah, that seems like a good idea.
I love it. I love it. I didn't know that till today, and I love it.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah. So that was fun. And yeah, man, Blackstone, a great press, great dad-led press. And Brendan, thank you for coming on and giving us a little insight. I hope you'll come back and tell us more as things develop.
Absolutely. I'm working on a couple things now, new books, and I've got, I can't even talk about it yet, but any day now, I'm going to be announcing a short story that is coming out from Titan. You can probably figure it out if you do a little digging, but with one of my absolute favorite characters, who wields a deadly sword, um, and prays to a certain god. You can probably figure out the rest, but I'll be announcing that any day now, which I'm really excited about.
Well, terrific. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Brendan.
thank you.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dad Lit Pod.